Waiting for the Right Snapper is the 19th episode of the 5th season of 2.5 Men. This is directed by Jeff Melman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's actually the last episode of the 5th season, and it's not a bad episode. I quite like it. It starts off with Charlie and Dr. Freeman, and he's talking about his feelings for Angie. And Dr. Freeman points out, a little needlessly, I feel like it's obvious, well, it's obvious to everybody but Charlie, that he is looking for this motherly relationship with Angie because he didn't get that from Evelyn. And I think it's quite an eye-opening conversation. Maybe anybody watching it who's in a similar situation to Charlie can maybe be a little bit more aware of why they're in that kind of situation. And Charlie leaves, and then Alan comes in without Charlie realising. And Alan tells Dr. Freeman he thinks he's in love with his brother's girlfriend, which I feel like, yeah, fair enough. I feel like Alan and Angie would be quite good together. Charlie then goes over to Angie's house, and Jeremy, her son, is there with his fiancée, Tricia, played by Virginia Williams. And it turns out Charlie and Tricia had slept together, which could be a little bit awkward. Obviously, they don't just come out and say this, but it definitely is making Charlie quite uncomfortable. We're then with Alan and Jake, and I have to say Jake was quite delightful in this one. He has to study, and he doesn't want to do it. He just needs to get a passing grade, and Alan says to him, "You know what you call someone who just skates through life doing only the bare minimum?" And without missing a beat, Jake replies, "Uncle Charlie?" Which I absolutely loved. Charlie and Angie are then at cinema, which felt a little bit random, but this gives them the opportunity to bump into Evelyn. And Evelyn tells Charlie that he needs to watch because Angie is clearly a cougar. And Charlie is dismissive of this fact. It's a bit of a random scene. I feel like it didn't move things forward too much. It didn't yet start planting the seed of doubt in Charlie's mind enough. I don't think it was strong enough. So I don't know what else I'd be looking for. But I feel like maybe we needed something else, or maybe we needed something else to happen in that scene to give it a little bit more value. Not a bad scene, but I feel like maybe we didn't get quite enough out of it as we could have done. Charlie and Angie are then back home at Charlie's house, and Charlie and Alan end up arguing. And it's very clear that they're both fighting over the same girl, even though, to be fair, Alan has no claim on her. He has no right to be arguing with Charlie because he's dating Angie. It's got nothing to do with Alan. Alan is clearly overcome with his own emotions, and we see this the following morning when he's in the kitchen and he is in a terrible mood, to the point where he tells Berta to just mind her own business and do her job, which is, well, it's not the way Alan usually speaks to people, so clearly he's very frustrated by this. And then Tricia turns up, and it turns out she's sobbing. She can't marry Jeremy. And this is because when she saw Charlie, she realised she still had feelings for him and she's not over him. And Alan takes this opportunity. And Alan gets almost giddy with excitement at one point, which is an absolute joy to see. I don't agree with his tactics, but it is entertaining to watch as he basically tries to tell Charlie, go after Tricia. Because obviously if he goes after Tricia, Alan can then go after Angie. Which, again, is maybe not the most moral thing to do, to go after your brother's ex, probably as soon as they break up. So Alan's behaviour isn't the best. It's clear he's very much driven by his heightened emotions, but it was a very enjoyable scene. And, well, Charlie goes to talk with Angie, and it turns out she found out Tricia isn't going to marry Jeremy anymore, which made Jeremy very upset, which made Angie very upset, and she blames Charlie for everything and tells him to drop dead. And he's back at the house. Apparently Alan went to talk with her, and all he had to say with that was, she's a mean drunk. And I like that we kind of wrap up there Alan's potential involvement with Angie. Because clearly she breaks it off with Charlie. We're having a clean break there. If they hadn't kind of wrapped up what would happen with Alan, we might have been left wondering, well, did he go for it? Which is a shame, because, I mean, it makes sense within the episode, and I think they took the right direction with it. But it is a bit of a shame that Alan didn't meet Angie first, because I do genuinely think that they could have been quite good together. But obviously that's not the direction it took, and I do think they took the right direction. I just would be a little bit curious to see what might have been. And then we find out that Jake's graduating the 8th grade. We end on a positive, and it's a really nice way to end the 5th season. It's been a really Really solid season, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And needless to say, Waiting for the Right Snapper is a decent episode. I don't know if I have many personal highlights. There wasn't too much that I found to be tremendously funny or particularly interesting, but I do think Alan's behaviour was quite fascinating because a lot of it is very atypical of Alan. That's not to say Alan isn't sometimes selfish. He absolutely can be. But there are certain things in this where he was maybe driven more by his heart than his head, and that's not always the case with Alan, so it was quite interesting to see. And Alan getting giddy happy, trying to tell Charlie to go with Tricia, was quite delightful. And Jake's joy at graduating and going on to the 8th grade was nice as well, graduating the 7th grade. So definitely a decent episode. And while it's not my all-time favourite episode, I'd say it's a pretty solid end to the 5th season of 2.5 Men.